Hello, my name is Latisha Allen, and I first want to thank you for watching my I Have What It Takes presentation. So the purpose of this presentation is to persuade you, my teacher, and my fellow classmates that I have what it takes to become a successful teacher. In this presentation, you'll get an understanding of my understanding of the Wisconsin teacher standards, and I'll also provide some evidence of my knowledge on why I have what it takes to become a successful teacher. So a little bit about my educational background. Prior to being at Alverno, I graduated from WCTC with my associate's degree in foundation of teacher education. And in this program, I learned a ton of new skills and ideas on how to have and how to run a successful classroom. I have been passionate for teaching as long as I can remember. Teaching has been a career for me since forever. It's just something that I'm drawn to, something that I enjoy. So in this presentation, you'll be able to get a look at all of the growth and some of what I've learned. So I'm first going to start off by talking to you guys about the importance of culturally relevant teaching. So a little bit later on in the presentation, you'll see a small snippet of an example of a lesson plan that I did with my students. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, I am working with students who live in the 53206 zip code of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is one of the most zip codes in Wisconsin and almost in the country that has the highest poverty rate, highest low income rate. A lot of my students are dealing with a lot of traumatic situations and a lot of traumatic issues. A lot of them are below grade level, so this particular lesson that I'll refer to in this PowerPoint is for 6th grade students, whereas even though they are in 6th grade, a lot of these students are on 3rd grade reading levels and some also 2nd, and this also includes math levels. A lot of this evidence comes from standardized tests that the students have taken, such as the Ford test, STAR testing, progress monitoring, exit tickets, which is something that you'll learn a little bit from me about as I continue with the presentation as well. So I will hit on ahead a little bit about how I meet my students where they are. Because they are so behind, you'll see how I try to adjust the lesson so that I'm able to kind of meet the needs of everybody as to where they are on grade level standpoint. But you'll also see how I am able to meet the students where they are as far as being able to learn differently. So those that are audio learners, visual learners, and kinesthetic learners. You'll see how I try to make the learning lesson fun and engaging, and how I try to include students' names and real-life scenarios and situations that the students are used to keep the students' attention and keep the students engaged. And you'll see how I have high expectations for my students, how I'll push my students to just deliver as best answers, to be comfortable, to be secure in their answers, and just to let them know that this is a learning environment and that we're all here to learn together, and I promise them success. So here you just see a short example of some lesson plans and some worksheets. So I first would like to apologize that the pictures are not as clear as I would have liked them to be. But the first two pictures, the upper left and the upper right, are both pictures of the lesson plan. So on the upper right, if you can look a little close, you'll see exactly what standards the students are trying to, the needs that I am expecting the students to meet after this lesson is taught. You'll see how I'll assess the students. In the left-hand corner, you just see a small snippet of exactly what the lesson entailed. So the lesson is a lesson about fractions. Students are in this lesson getting a review on how to set up a fraction correctly. So remembering exactly where the numerator is, where the denominator is, what is the meaning of the two, which one is parts, which one is whole, understanding, and that's just going to be like a basic review. But then students move on to having an understanding of how to structure a fraction, or how to understand a fraction when it's in word problem form. And then this moves us on to be able to adding fractions correctly, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. We're learning how to find important information in these questions. And these questions also involve movement. So these questions include students that are include students in the lesson, and it requires students to do things such as move to the left of the classroom, or move by the door, or pretend that they're using the restroom. And I'll continue to elaborate on that as I read through. So in the bottom two boxes in the left corner, you will see a worksheet, and this worksheet just basically has 4 problems, and these are 4 interactive problems. So in the beginning of the lesson, what I'll do is I'll go over the basic understanding of fractions with students. And how I was able to create this lesson was based off of my knowledge from prior forward tests and prior STAR tests that the students had taken at the school. So results of those tests showed that these students needed to have kind of a better understanding of what a fraction is and how to understand a fraction when it's not just an equation, but when it's actually put into a word problem, into a real life scenario. So again, you see in the bottom left corner, you see 4 interactive questions. So basically, these are questions that I created myself using students' names and real life scenarios. So if you can't read one of the questions, an example question might be, there is a total of 9 students in the classroom that are sitting at their desks working. 2 of these students asked to go to the restroom. And the question will have their name, so it'll say, Marissa asked her to go to the restroom, and so did Antonio. If Marissa and Antonio both leave the classroom to go to the restroom, what is the fraction of students that are still sitting in their desks doing their work? So what we would do as a class is I would have Marissa pretend to leave and go to the restroom, and Antonio pretend to leave to go to the restroom as well. And what this will look like is I'll probably just have the students, what I actually did do, is have the students stand by the classroom door as if they're no longer in the classroom. And then, as I'm working through the problem, as I'm talking with the students, I'll have the students originally tell me how many of us were all together, how many left, and now how many we have. So basically, as we're going through the problem, we'll highlight important information. We'll set up the equation, the new equation. We'll figure out whether it's addition or subtraction, and then we'll solve the problem. And I think that with having students being able to maneuver around a classroom, this helps keep them engaged. But also with me being able to maneuver around a classroom, it helps me keep them focused. In the bottom right-hand corner, you'll just see a little snippet of an exit ticket. So when this lesson was over, I gave students a 5-question exit ticket that they were expected to do along. And basically, it's just a review as far as how to simplify and add basic fractions, and also how to take that important information out of that word problem and solve it. So these exit tickets are the tickets that I use to assess the students and see how well they were able to adapt to this lesson plan. So some of my newly developed teaching skills and techniques, just learning to be more patient. So the reason why that's something that I mentioned is because in the beginning of the presentation, I let you guys know that I was working with students who are in the 6th grade, but unfortunately, a lot of them are at a 3rd grade to 2nd grade reading level. So my original approach is thinking that because these students are in the 6th grade, they're going to have an understanding of certain words or certain things that I just assume that they have already prior knowledge of. But I realized that having that assumption isn't good because every student is at a different level. So being able to be more patient, being able to give students more thinking time. So another skill that I learned is being able to adjust the students again, as I said, because they're at a different grade level than where they should be. I'm able to adjust the lesson plan so that it doesn't seem like it's a lesson for a little baby, because a lot of times you're dealing with 6th grade students and they know when you're intentionally giving them work that's at a 3rd grade level. So I try to adjust the students by creating a lesson plan that is at a 6th grade level but sort of with 3rd grade content so that they can get an understanding but then still feel pushed and still feel at their grade level. I try to keep open-ended questions and answers when we're doing work. So when I say open-ended questions, I mean that I try to ask the students open questions to make sure that that they have an understanding. And when I say open-ended answers, that means that I'm able to take the answer that a student has provided for me, and even though it might not be exactly the way that I wanted the answer to be worded, I'm able to take their understanding of it by them putting it in their own words and understand if they actually understand what the lesson is teaching. And then I am also going on teamwork and from peers. So not only from myself, from help from other teachers, but also with the students. Some students learn better when they're able to learn from their friends in the classroom, whereas when the teacher is teaching it. So some theories that have had an effect on how I plan this lesson plan would definitely be Carol Dweck. So Carol Dweck focused on growth mindset as well as not yet. So again, because these are students who are at a lower grade level than what is expected of them, I have created this lesson plan to where I wanted to make sure that my students had an understanding, and that I understood that just because my students are below grade level does not necessarily mean that they can't get there. It just means that they're not there yet, and that possibly that this lesson has to be revamped and rescoped to meet the needs of those students. Alfred Kahn is another theorist that stands out to me because he likes to create lesson plans that are relatable and that draws in from the curiosity of the students. So that just is that refers to when I tried to, or when I did create the lesson on relatable topics, on real life scenarios that the students face on a regular. And Erik Erikson stands out to me, or is important to me, because it's important that students meet prior needs before they're able to move on to the next step. As I mentioned, because my students are in the 6th grade, they will be moving on to the 7th and 8th grade the prior year, which is more higher level middle school thinking. And I want to make sure that my students have that elementary school understanding first of math before they are expected to move on, because I don't want to have failure from the students. So from these Wisconsin teacher standards, I highlighted a few. So the ones that are highlighted in red are things that I feel like I can still work on, but things that I feel like that I've also done well. And the things that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that I feel like I have done great, and then they are part of why I have what it takes to be amazing. So just starting off with the ones in the red, teachers know the subjects that they are teaching, teachers communicate well, and teachers are able to evaluate themselves. So these are 3 things that I feel like I can still grow on, because these are 3 things where, like, sometimes if I'm teaching a student, I might be using dialogue that they don't understand, or sometimes I might not be 100% on how a topic is. So, like, sometimes my answers might not be 100% clear. So I want to make sure that I'm working on that and that I have a complete understanding before I'm trying to teach it to someone else. And because of that, I feel like that helps me, that's where I'm able to evaluate myself and realize that sometimes you have to restructure things, and that's okay. And as far as the ones in the yellow, teachers understand that children learn differently. Teachers know how to manage a classroom, and teachers are able to plan different lessons. This lesson met auditory, visual, kinesthetic learners. It was very interactive. I had classroom management by moving around the classroom, tapping students, adjusting to whatever the students need. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to I Have What It Takes by Latisha Allen.